Welcome back to the foundry. Today I thought I'd do a quick video on my tanker. It's what I use in conjunction with my small oil production rig. And it's an old girl, but a good one. I'm gonna hook it up to the truck and pull it out here where we got some room. I'm gonna hook it up to Brute over there. That's the truck I put the gooseneck hitch in previous videos. And I'll go over the thing with you and just kind of let you know how it works. And it's also a little bit of testing. I'm going to look at a few things on it, see what it needs to get it roadworthy for some upcoming jobs. So let's get to it. I don't know what kind of truck this trailer was built for, possibly a flatbed, but I can't leave the tailgate down. I got to get it this far, put the tailgate up, then hook it up. All right. So what we have here is a 1,000-gallon tanker, and I'll show you how it works real quick. So I have my rig running on a well. As the reservoir on the rig fills up, there's a level switch in it, automatically kicks on a pump and pumps in up there at that port. When this fills up, I take it over to the producer's tank battery setup. And it's got a gasoline engine back here that runs this gear pump. Haven't used it in a couple months. What we have here is a Harbor Freight Predator, I think Predator's Harbor Freight. 420cc gasoline engine drives the pump, and typically what you would do is crank up the engine, slowly open that valve in conjunction with this valve. This would be up at your tank battery, in the top port of your tank battery. Then you'd crawl up there, the hose would be pressurized. You open this valve and it pumps into the tank. When the tanker gets emptied, you shut your valve off and turn your engine off. Then you apply air pressure right here to finish pushing out what's left in your hose, because once it's empty past this pump doesn't have any way to empty the hose, because I mean a tank battery could be 20 foot tall and you've got to push that oil up and over into the tank battery. So you carry a little air tank, hook it up there, and that empties your hose. So today all I'm going to do, I think there's a little oil in this tank. I think there's probably about 2 barrels, give or take. And I'm going to crank that up and basically just pump it back into itself just to make sure everything works good. And then I'm gonna put an air hose into this and see how the hose empties. And what this is an old canvas type fire hose, and it's worked good with oil, believe it or not. It's worked pretty good for a number of years. Now, to get it ready for my jobs I got coming up, a couple things I'm going to do. You'll notice this tank protector is basically a thick piece of conveyor rubber. It just what the tank sets on to the frame so it doesn't rub a hole in the tank. And it's falling down in the front on both sides. I'm going to tie that back up there. Check my air pressure in my tires. These tires are kind of dry rotted, but I don't actually have to pull this thing down the road loaded, because loaded it'd be about 8,000 pounds. I pull it empty to the location, fill it up, and then it's usually a very short distance to the tank batteries where I offload it. You know, no more than a quarter mile usually down a gravel road where I can go slow. So as long as the tires hold air, I think they'll be good enough for my purposes for the time being. This one over here is a little less weathered. Old 920 it looks like. Oh, that's a 1020. I noticed after I hooked it up, it leans pretty heavy to the left. If I can get the camera straight, I bet it's down about 4 or 5 inches on that side versus that side. So that's a 1020. What size is this tire? It looks like the same. What do we got here? Yeah, 1020. So it's not a difference in tires. I'm on the overload here, but over here I'm not on the overload. So I got a sagging spring over there. I guess you would call that possibly, this lower spring could possibly be collapsed. It doesn't appear to be broken. You would see broken leaves if that were the case. It's probably just wore out, if I had to guess. And so that's kind of a bummer. Good enough for me to use right now. I'll start trying to hunt up another leaf spring. I don't know how challenging that would be. This chassis is from a military truck, and obviously an old military truck by the looks of that axle and those lock ring buds. But I know where there's a bunch of old trucks, so I may be able to buy a leaf spring, but I'm not going to mess with that just right now. I've got other things more pressing. Just happened to notice that the other day. I think I mentioned something about it in a previous video. But my primary focus today is make sure my engine, pump, and everything like that works good. And then I'll need to put some trailer lights on this rig to make it legal, because I have to pull it down the highway about 10 or 15 miles to get to the oil field. And it's really neat the way this thing is set up. So on my last bucket, let's say I'm producing on a well. I'm removing all the oil that's in the case, in the casing. Mother Nature's already separated it. Oil floats on salt water. So if a formation's full of salt water, oil that seeps in floats up on top of the water and pushes up the casing to what we call the fluid level. My machine recovers the oil, and there could be 300, 400, 500 feet of that casing that's got oil in it. Then you hit salt water on your last bucket. So as it brings up that last bucket of oil, it could be 50-50 salt water. So when my oil's pumped into this tank, I let it sit for a few hours. The salt water separates, goes to the bottom, oil floats on top. I can open this valve into this box, which I need to empty this box, and you basically watch water come out until oil comes out, and then you shut that off. And that's how you bleed the water off of your tank, and all you're left with is pure crude oil. And then you can empty it here wherever you want. You can hook a hose up to that. I usually just pump it back down the well when I'm finished. Yeah, that works out really well. And to prove the quality of the oil I produce, I take samples, run them through a centrifuge, and that gives me the percentage of salt water versus crude oil. And it's usually something like 0.5% maybe. I think 2%, somewhere around 2% or less is what the refinery requires, and mine is 0.5% or less. So it's very good quality oil. First things first, I want to see if I've got any water in my tank. Now there's some oil floating on there, but it's mostly water underneath, I do believe. So I'm just going to bleed it off into this bucket, presumably. Yeah, see, that's mostly water. I'm going to drain that down so when I open that valve, I'll easily be able to see what's coming out of it. That's mostly just water. There's probably a 1/4 inch layer of oil on top of it. I'll shut it off where that oil comes out. Well, hearing that, I got to go to the bathroom now. Good enough. All right, let's see if we got any water in our tank. I just crack it open. Yeah, we got some water. And that was it. Just a tad little bit settled out in the bottom of this tank. We really don't get a lot of water, salt water, and that's really good for production. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to switch focus over here to my engine and pump. So I've just got it set up with the hose just to pump back into itself. Honestly, there may not be enough oil in the tank to even fill this hose. So I really just want to see if my motor's running good and the pump engages. You know, everything seems like it's doing right before I head out on this next job, simply because this thing has set up so long. One thing I hate is getting out to a job having not pre-checked your equipment, and you have problems, especially if a customer's standing there and you just look like a fool because your equipment ain't working right. So that's really all this is, but we're going to give it a shot. Boy, this gas is old and nasty. I can smell it. Alright, so I was right. There wasn't enough oil in the tank to really pump, but it did fill up the hose. It just didn't have quite enough oil. It got the oil line up to about right there. It's kind of dripping in there through the nozzle, but there just wasn't much oil in it. So I closed that line. So all the oil is trapped in the hose. So we're going to hook up the air compressor to the hose and flush it out. I can hear it running in there. Whoa! Party foul! That's actually doing pretty good. All right, so everything worked as expected. I got everything tied up, hoses and such. Got my valves where they need to be, and it's pretty much ready to go to work. I do got to get my trailer lights plumbed onto it, but other than that, pretty happy with it. I actually cranked this engine back up after I shut the camera off and ran it some more. It's just a little cold natured. After it warmed up, it ran perfect. I do want to get some fresh fuel in it. It's got some nasty stuff in there now. Thankfully, it's only like, it's got very little in it, so I'll put a fresh tank in that. And I just wanted to show you guys how the thing worked. And this is how I get oil from my small oil rig over to a tank battery, and the producer can then sell the oil, and then I get my cut. So yeah, it's ready for the road. Now, once again, I don't pull this thing down the highway when it's loaded, because when I go out to a job, it's empty. I fill it up, and the tank batteries are always fairly close to the well. It's rare that a tank battery is going to be more than a quarter mile away from the well, so then I can just ease it down. It's usually a gravel road or whatever. I just ease it over to the tank batteries and unload it. So the leaf spring issue doesn't really concern me all that much. It's just sagging a little bit, but like I said, on the road the thing's not even loaded, so I'm really not worried about it. For now, I will get around to fixing it. Also, this rear bumper exaggerates the lean. I got underneath it and looked back up this way. The rear bumper's bent, and that is why it's doing that number right there. So there's that. Anyway, just want to do a quick little video of, what are you eating, Ellie? She's grazing. She likes to eat grass. Not because she has an upset stomach. She genuinely likes vegetation. I wouldn't call her a vegetarian, because she also destroys red meat, but she does get her fill of grass, and if I let her eat too much, she'll ralph it up on the floor in the office. So anyway, just wanted to show you a little bit about this tanker, how it works, how I'm going to be using it. And like I said in the last video, I got jobs coming up. It's taking me a while to get to them, because this is really just a side business at this point. And my real job, my real business is, I have a couple, and they get busy, and that's a good thing. So I'm going to try to work in these oil wells just as soon as I can, and I'm going to bring you guys along with me. We're going on an oil scavenger hunt. We're going to find abandoned wells, we're going to find shut-in wells, offline wells. We're going to get with producers, get permission, get on those wells, and see if we can recover oil. That's the game. So like, subscribe, see you in the next one.